At the turn of the century, boxing was in probably its biggest renegade stage, as we had all kinds of new contestants that joined the boxing ring and launched their career. And the Dixie Kid is no exception, as he launched his career in March of 1900, just at the very young age of 16. The Dixie Kid started getting himself some forms of income at a rather young age and proceeded to live a very notorious renegade life and career as he repeatedly found himself on the wrong end of the law. As these were one of the early renegade stages of boxing, as Bat Masterson became a referee in many of the matches. The police constantly asserted themselves as bombastic bastards, stopping matches and arresting folks for doing the art of boxing. And very much this was one of the renegade periods of the beginning of the turn of the century of the year 1900. And much like Stanley Ketchel, who came after this fighter, the Dixie Kid, the Dixie Kid very much was like Stanley Ketchel in that he himself was a renegade. He got himself a little bit of money and proceeded to get himself in more and more trouble as his career progressed. And much like Ketchel, he was a boxing prodigy, starting at the age of 16 years old in March of 1900. The beginning of Dixie Kid's career actually had none of the hallmarks of being a great fighter, as throughout his what I would call his amateur career here, as he's young into his teens, he doesn't really have a lot of success. He's within 50% of his bouts in his first 15 fights, and nothing in his career looks as if he is destined for greatness. But as the Dixie Kid took his lumps and learned the crafts of boxing, he slowly became better. And in the year of 1904, just at the young, tender age of 20 years old, the Dixie Kid got himself his first real test in boxing. And this was all the way to the front of the line and one of the absolute top 3 pound-for-pound fighters of this pioneer era in the Barbados Joe Walcott. And Joe Walcott proceeded to give the young Dixie Kid a clinic in boxing, as he probably taught him every single trick in the book, as the Dixie Kid had all kinds of trouble in the match. But one thing that he took of value is all the lessons that the Barbados demon Joe Walcott taught him. And he used those lessons, and just after that, his acceleration really started to take off. And because I think he got himself a little bit of confidence, and he believed, I guess, that if he went 20 rounds with the greatest pound-per-pound fighter, Joe Walcott, that he could do anything, and he started believing it. And the Dixie Kid's career was launched in full swing, and as we got to see one of the premier welterweight fighters of the early times here, as the newspaper referred to the Dixie Kid as the best welterweight that ever came from the Pacific Coast. I'm sure some of these fighters are not counted as welterweights, such as Walcott, who was maybe over the limit of a welterweight, but nonetheless, that's what the Dixie Kid is being referred to as the best welterweight that ever came from the Pacific Coast, which the West Coast and the best welterweight would be a pretty amazing statement. And just showing you a glimpse into the greatness that was the Dixie Kid. The Dixie Kid is part of one of the best boxing classes, and born in the year 1883 are 5 fighters. All 5 fighters make the pioneer list. We have the original Italian stallion, Hugo Kelly. Also born in 1883 is one of the best pound-for-pound fighters in Jack Blackburn. Also born in 1883 is the Australian Bill Lang, who fought for the heavyweight title. Also in 1883 is the perhaps best pound-per-pound fighter in the list in Sam Langford. And finally, number 5 in the year 1883, the Dixie Kid. So the Dixie Kid came up in the second wave, the black American fighters here, after the likes of the first wave, which were Frank Childs, George Byers, Denver Ed Martin, Bob Armstrong, people like that. Came the second wave, and many of these fighters are born near or around the 1883 point of black fighters George Cole, young Peter Jackson, Larry Temple, Jack Blackburn, Jeff Clark. These are all the fighters of the Dixie Kids era as the second wave of the black fighters approached America and made their own dent in boxing history. And I'm going to take this moment to read 2 different newspaper things that I want to read that are going to extend this video, but I found some information on the Dixie Kid that I wanted to relay in this video. So how did the Dixie Kid ever get his name? This tells the origin story of a part of where it came from. Using historical records, such as the newspaper, articles, and census forms, Van Ingen has pieced together the story of the athlete born in 1883 who became a boxing pro at the age of 16. His stage name came from Dixie, a song performed in blackface about a slave who misses the plantation. So apparently Dixie had a pretty big sense of humor there. Brown's playfulness pleased the crowds. He weaved, bobbed, and sidestepped punches. He feigned fatigue to give his opponents false confidence, pummeling them when they came closer. He would launch himself off the ropes and catapult towards his opponent. He had this crazy fighting style that appeared to please people. Brown went to France in the 1920s, where he became a celebrity. One newspaper said it was populous among French boxing fans as Charlie Chaplin was with the movie patrons. Aaron Brown, who already had run-ins with the law, immersed himself in cocaine, alcohol, and womanizing with his winnings in Europe. He briefly returned to the U.S., then on his way back to Europe, fell asleep on a steamship and ended up in a Scottish port. There, he found a gym and became a boxing trainer. While in Scotland, he attacked a pharmacist for more cocaine and racked up more criminal charges in a foreign country. Back in the USA, again, he worked as a janitor and lived in flop houses. He primarily lived off the kindness of others. At the age of 51, he jumped out a window of a second-story floor in Los Angeles, likely to commit suicide. He died from related injuries 7 months later. The Dixie Kid was in more than 150 fights. Unlike a career retrospective we're going to do a different type of reading here, as this is from the newspaper. The same year that he died, 1934. I'm going to read you this section from September 9th, 1904. The man then in one corner at the old Liverpool Stadium is the other crafty, foxy Dixie Kid, the saddest looking Negro I have ever set eyes upon. Dixie's expression never varied. No one ever saw him smile. Winning or losing, he always wore the same mournful expression. But few guessed the clever, scheming brain that laid behind those sad, worry-looking eyes. For Aaron Brown, as a pure boxer and simple, had no master. For Aaron Brown, as a boxer, pure and simple, had no master. He knew all the tricks and trades of the sport, and a good many more of his own invention. But his opponents never could tell by his expression the workings of his mind. In the ring, he was a chocolate-colored shadow, weaving, bobbing, and leaping in and out on dancing feet as difficult to lay a glove on as Willie the Wisp. He was the first man to introduce the tricks of slithering along the ropes with one hand and launching himself from the catapult fashion. Scores of boxers copied him, but none ever achieved his supreme artistry. Aaron Brown had an extraordinary hobby for a fighting man. He was way of being an inventor in his spare time, and quite clever at it, too, he was. That is the story of the Dixie Kid, the man who never smiled or changed his expressions, and just poker-faced in the ring against all of his boxing opponents, as they were unable to read his expressions at any point. And the Dixie Kid is one of the great prodigies in boxing history. As thing I could gather, the Dixie Kid's defense appears to be on the level of any championship caliber champion, such as Tommy Ryan, as he seems to have one of the premier defenses of any of the boxers. Dixie Kid never really fought over the weight limit of a welterweight. Most all of his fights are taking place at 145 pounds, and many of the opponents he's facing are not in the welterweight weight limit, and the Dixie Kid was forced to give away pounds in many of his matches as he burned through the competitors of these second wave of black fighters, such as young Peter Jackson, Larry Temple, and George Cole. Most of them were above the welterweight limit, while the Dixie Kid felt the need to not add any weight. He felt like he could compete with them at welterweight limit, and that unique fact makes him one of the most interesting cases here. Is he's one of the pure welterweight fighters in the top 60 here boxing class. 145 pounds, 5'8", the black magic known as the Dixie Kid. Your boxing profile is coming up.